coming because it's not quite available yet, but out of the box, very nice indeed. Look out for it. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I've got an open box today, which is quite exciting. This is a new release from AFV Club, and it's this one here. It's the Australian version of the M113 armoured personnel carriers that we used during Vietnam, and it's very specific to the Australian Army version. There's quite a few different additions. Particularly the most obvious is the Cadillac Gage turret, which could house a variety of configurations. And I think we should have a really close look at this with all the individual sprues, because it's these individual sprues that make this particular version so special. So let's get into it. I'll open it up and we'll have a closer look. All right, so very nice box art as you can see here. You've got, there's two versions of the M113 shown. This is the earlier version here, which has got the 50 cal across the top. And then you've got this one, which has got the Cadillac Gage T50 turret. So as you can see here, Australian Army M113A1, which was a basic sort of version, with the T50. So it was only the Australian Army that used the T50 on the M113s. It was simply because the open commander's cupola didn't provide enough protection from all sides. So eventually you would have seen different versions where they used sheet metal armoured plate across the fronts and the sides, just to help protect the commander a bit better. And then it was decided that the T50 turret was better protection all in all. So let's have a look inside. Okay, here we go. All right, so you've got a box jam packed full of parts. I mean, this is a very big box for an armoured personnel carrier of this sort of size. I mean, M113s, as you can see, aren't that particularly big. So let's have a closer look at the hull. Most of the components are from the AFV Club's earlier renditions of the M113. So I think there's 4 different versions. There's the early versions all the way up to a later Israeli version. So as we can see here, you got the very specific shape. Actually, I'll move this out of the way, keep this all clear. Okay, so you got these super clean molds. Got a little hatch on the bottom here. Now, some of the biggest difference to the hull for the Australian version is there's additional armour plate, which is on the base of the hull. That was included for mine protection. There's also an additional plate across, I think the second and third road wheels here, just on the sponsons. That's also to protect from mines. Nice hull. Okay, so what you're going to find is this is also going to have some interior detail. It doesn't have an engine like the ancient Tamiya kit. I built one of those when I was a little kid, quite enjoyed that in the 80s. It's still not a bad kit, but this far surpasses that with cleanliness of all the mouldings. So I guess if you want an engine bay, you could get a conversion and pop it in there, but you do get interior details for the driver's compartment, then also this passenger storage compartment in the back. So there's a door here which can be opened or closed. It's got working hinges. And then there's additional parts which also allow for extra jerry cans at the back for the Australian version. All right, let's pop that over there. All right, let's look at this here. I'm going to slice this open. Now this is another one of the sprues from the original kit. So this has got the gun shields, the rear door. Oops, didn't cut enough there, here we go. All right, spin around here. Okay, so this is the gun shield, which is made for the 50 cal around the commander's cupola. This was a stopgap measure before they started fitting in the T50 turrets. Here you've got the rear hatch with the access door. Access door is right there. So you've got multiple sides for that. You've got the controls here for the driver, so you can use levers. You've got some dials for the driver, and then also the driver's seat, which is the adjustable height seat. And this is the cupola for, is that the, actually I'm not too sure, that's probably the commander's cupola. And there's the hatch cover. You have a support there for the 50 cal, but these are components that you won't be using on this particular model. Most of the other parts you will be, of course. All right, let's pop that over here. All right, over here we've got the accessory pack. So this is a generic Vietnam War era accessory pack. It consists of weaponry and jerry cans. Okay, so there's 2 sprue which are the same. You've got an ammo or grenade sort of case here. So what we have here is mainly the American style weaponry. Let's shift that over there. Where am I? Okay. So we've got M16s. Got a shortened version, which is like the AR-15. Can't remember what they called it back then, but they had a different designation for it. You got a sniper's rifle here. M60, general purpose machine gun. And then jerry cans. So the jerry cans, you can basically put these were located at the back of the M113 on the Aussie versions. You've got this big case here, which I guess you could also use like a 20mm ammo box, which was sometimes carried on the Australian M113s as well. A couple of these were normally in the back corner, and they used to put, I think, smoke grenades within them. So you've got 2 sets here, so there's plenty to use. You can put them all around the vehicle, inside the vehicle, and then obviously these are specific for the Australian version on the back. Okay, let's pop this here. All right, we have this particular component here. We've got some clear parts here as well. So you have clear parts for the vision blocks. Just pop that out. So these are also from the original kit. All very clean. So vision blocks here, which you would use for the driver's compartment. Some of these perhaps would have been for the original commander's cupola, so you may not use all of them. There's some here for lenses for lights. On this side, so the round ones. Okay, and then also on this packet, let's just open this up. Okay, so a couple more sprue, identical. So over here you've got another gun shield. So these are the parts that would have been perhaps used for the ACAV version, which had the 50 cals. Oh, sorry, there would have been M60s on the sides. Got some ammo belts here. You've got ammo guides, and then various hatches and fitting components for around the hull. So some tie downs, and then we'll go into the instructions a bit later and we'll see exactly which parts you'll be using. Okay, so there's 2 sprues of those, identical. All right, over here we start getting to some of the original components for this particular kit. So another set of clear parts, these would be for the Cadillac Gage turret. And then there's another set of jerry cans. So the jerry cans here are a slightly different shape. And they're probably the ones used for the Australian version. So we've got a set of weaponry here as well, which are specific. Okay, so there's weapon sets. Let's cut this open. Jerry cans. And some clear components. Okay. All right, so these are specific jerry cans made for this particular kit. So these will be in the Australian pattern. So there's water cans and then also fuel cans. They're molded in halves, so you just need to glue those together. And they have a nice three handle. So the three handle design that carries over from World War II. That's from the original German jerry cans, which are also cocked by the Allies. Whole idea of the three there is you're going to either carry two within one hand, so you hold the two edges of these handles together, or you can just carry one in each hand, so you just use the center handle, which makes them perfectly balanced. Okay, so your jerry cans over here. Let's have a look at this weaponry. This is really interesting that they've gone and tooled up all these specific weapons here. So you've got some SLRs. So SLRs are very specific of that time for the Australian Army in Vietnam. They were used quite late until the upgrade. We've got Owen submachine gun here. A very specific Australian submachine gun, quite legendary. You could quite a very simple design that was very reliable. Drop it in mud, still use it. So this is from the World War II era, and still used up past the Vietnam War. Over here we've got the F1 submachine gun, which is also an Australian design. Similar in idea to the Owen. It's got the vertical magazine. And then we've got some Sterlings as well. So you've got Sterling submachine guns, the British type. Over here we have the 30 caliber machine guns. So 30 caliber machine guns used in the turret. You've also got what appears to be I think that's a barrel of the 50 cal here. So the 50 cal comes in multiple pieces. It's got the receiver and then the barrel separately. 30 cal, there were different options within the turret. So it could use twin 30 cals in the turret, or because I used up quite a lot of space, quite often one would be mounted in the turret and one would be mounted on a pivot outside. So it could be easily aimed at a target without having to traverse a whole turret. And then there are also options of having a 50 cal within the turret as well. So this is very unique for Australia. It's very rare to find Owen type submachine guns, also the F1. For that matter, also the Sterlings as well. There are aftermarket ones available, of course, but these are very, very nice. Really crisp, no flash at all. All right, so that's a specific weaponry. All right, over here we have the clear parts for the T50 turret. So very common these days to have the clear parts molded with this round sprue type design. You have the injection going through the center and then it travels outwards. So the whole idea is to try to get as even coverage of the material as possible. So a lot of lenses on the outside, and then there's the turret vision blocks along the center there. Really nice. Okay, so they're vision blocks, jerry cans, and weaponry. All right, here we're getting into the drive. So you've got road wheels. Let's slice this open. You've got transmission housings. Okay, again, we've got two sprues which are the same, so they've been clever in their designs with the engineering, so they don't have to tool too much. They just pump out a couple of extra molds. Okay, so here we go, identical. So you have your road wheels in multiple pieces, and then the tires separately. And that helps with painting as well, because the tires being black, you don't have to worry about being very careful with masking around the wheel itself. Just paint them black, glue them on separately, you have your perfect color separation. You have your swing arms here for the suspension. And then over here, these are probably torsion bars, I think, which will be mounted inside the hull. You've got your drive sprockets, and then your idler wheels as well. And here you've got your the drive gear housing. You can see all the nut detail on the road wheels. And again, this is from the original kit. all common components. So made quite a few years ago, but still very, very crisp. I mean, that always helps when you spend a little bit more time and effort making the mold. It gives a really good longevity. Okay, so that's the opposing side. So that's all your drive system. 2 sprues. All right, moving along, what do we have here? Okay, so here we have, these look like original components for the Australian version. You can see there's receivers for the 50 cal. All very neatly packed together. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, so you got a 30 cal. There's a 30 cal there. You got the receiver, multiple pieces for the 50 cal. This is very nice indeed, because this is being slide molded. You can tell it's slide molding by the odd shape in the sprue here. So basically that means there's another section that comes in this way. And what they've been able to achieve here is you can see all the various holes for the barrel cooling. And then also there's a hole to accept the barrel in there as well. So 2-piece receiver there for the 50 cal. You've got 2-piece receiver there for the 30 cal as well. So this is for making the option of the 30 cal or 50 cal within the turret. On this side you have all the ammunition boxes and ammunition feed, and also the interior mounts for each of the guns. So brand new sprue for this particular version. So 30 cal, you can see how fine the cooling is as well. So obviously you can't see all the way through these cooling holes, but just with a bit of a wash, they're really, really crisp. No rounded detail there at all. Super nice. All right. All right, moving along. Over here we've got this is the T50 Turret. Again, another brand new mold. Okay, quite exciting indeed. So multiple pieces. Here's the main section of the turret itself. Okay, so you can see there's the front. This is where the guns are kept. So you can either have the twin configuration or the single. Now they went for the single configuration later on with the pivot mounted exterior 30 cal, simply because 2 receivers in here made this very, very tight and cramped. So by limiting it to 1, you had a little bit more movement within that small hatch area. Okay, so obviously to fit the new turret, you've got this big turret ring. So it mounts on the top of the hull. Base of the turret there, which sits on top of the ring. And then you have the hatch there, which folds open, which also acts as a seat for the commander. You have this mantlet, which is for the twin guns. So one side's either blanked off if you're only using the one. This is the canvas cover. And then you've got this little tube area here. I think this is for collecting the spent shells and all the different mounting points. And you've got the floor as well. Okay, so these will be the vertical supports to the floor. And then a couple of boxes here. I guess that's an ammo box right there. Okay, very nice. I mean, apart from this T50, the only other way to get a T50 was with a resin conversion. But this, I think, will have a lot more detail than a resin version of the turret, which will generally just be the top section of the turret. Okay, so this section here, what do we have? We've got the tools. This is the original sprue from the first AFV Club M113. So common tools within there, you've got some radio equipment, what appears to be batteries. You've got the extra part here for mud flaps. You've got tools, so Pioneer tools, which would be on the exterior. lights here. So they would be for headlights. You've got so the clear lenses would go on top of that. And then various other bits and pieces that you use on the inside. So you've got different levers. There's headlight covers here for protection, and little panels here for different types of equipment. Okay, so there's that part there. All right, so we're getting into some bigger sprues. These are larger parts of the APC. So from what I can see here, these will still be the original parts from the M113. This one's a little bit different though, actually. This is a new component. Okay, so this is brand new sprue just for the Australian version. You've got this section here, which is the additional armour which goes on the bottom of the hull. So you can see right there. So this will just fit across here, like so. So it's for the additional mine protection. Here you've got the extra protection for the sponsons. So you see this part here, so they'll fit about this point and this point. And then you have a slightly different configuration for the upper deck. This here is a row of special racks that the Australians made to hold all the ammunition boxes across the top of the hull. So depending on your configuration, so you've got the 30 cal here or here, and then there's 50 cal boxes here. So depending on if you had a 50 cal and a 30 cal, you would need obviously 50 cal ammo and 30 cal. If you had the twin 30 cal, then it only had this very long array of 30 cal ammo boxes along here. You've got slightly different drivers cupola section here, and then this is part of the, what is that? That would be the hatch here. Okay, and then you've got some spare track there as well. Okay, so there's quite a lot. As you can see, there's already, I think we've gone through 4 or maybe 5 specific sprues just for this new kit. So a lot of retooling involved, and even though M113 looks pretty similar, there are quite a lot of differences in making the Australian version. All right, let's move on to our final sheet of sprue here. Okay, so this is a big piece. So this is original M113. Quite a few of these components aren't going to be used. So let's go through. You've got that top deck. Okay, so on this previous version, you can see how the top deck is in 2 parts over here. So you've got slight differences here. The driver's section is slightly different here. You'll see that the fitting on this point is actually on the panel for the driver's panel. So just fine details like that. This opening here is slightly bigger for the T50. So you've got your turret ring that goes on there. And then let's see, you've got slightly different pattern rear hatch. So the size different? No, it's basically the same, but the pattern is different. And then there's also the driver's hatch is slightly different. It's been squared off on this side to make room for the T50, because obviously when you open up, it's going to interfere. So it's been flattened off. So quite a few variations to make it as authentic as possible. The other thing you're not going to be using is these rubber shields here for the track. They were removed and it was open. You will be using the interior, of course. So there's the interior floor, and then you've got bulkheads, and then this is the what do you call it? The splash guard, I guess, when it's going amphibious, because these particular M113s are very light and could tread water. You have your front panel here. So here's the the engine compartment. So it's nice that this is all separate. You can have that open with the hatches in case you want to have engine details there. Got fuel tanks and various bits and pieces. So we'll go through the instructions and we'll find out exactly which bits you're going to be using and not using. But there's plenty of spare bits as well. So spare bits are always useful for any project. Bit of scratch building, bit of kit bashing. Okay. So that's all the plastic. So from there we move on to the tracks. Might be a bit hard to see there actually, but these are a rubber band type track, but they're very different to very early type tracks in that there's very good detail. So even when you fold it, it doesn't just look like folded rubber. It actually looks like individual links. And rather than the old style of Timor where you had to melt the ends together, these are held together with a pin. So there's pins included so that when you put them together, just press them in and they're fixed. So no need to do individual track links, which can be a pain. All right, so we've got all that. We come to our finer details. So we have a set of decals. There's decals for 3 different versions. And we'll go through those in a moment. There's a little bit of twine in there, which will be for tow cable. There's pins here for the tracks, and then a fret here for photo wedge. So another specific item on the Australian M113s was the grilling that was covering the engine bays, and they had a finer grill across them. So this is just glued in place. And then there's a few other bits and pieces for jerry cans. So very nice. All right, so that's all the plastic bits. Okay, so let's get into the manual. All right, so we've got the manual here. Very standard AFV Club type configuration. We've got a little bit of the history. So going back into the history, so the Australian Army required APCs, or armoured personnel carriers, and they were trialling the M113 compared to the British FV603. And they ended up going with the M113 because they were all aluminium, so they're lighter. It allowed them to be amphibious, and that's something that they really wanted. Whereas the British versions were all steel, quite a lot heavier. Now they initially trialled them in Queensland, worked very well. Started using them within Vietnam, so in the early 60s. And then with the issue of the protection for the commander, they started making up various armoured plates locally within South Vietnam as a stopgap before they actually decided on a turret to use in place. So they trialled a few different turrets. They heard there was an experiment going on with the Americans that they were going to fit a turret. The Americans ended up not doing so, but with some trials after a few years, in 1968 they started fitting out all the Australian M113s with the T50 turret, and it's ended up being quite successful. So it did have some problems of being cramped, and also the traverse was a little bit slow. So hence there's different versions that they made of it to overcome those issues. Okay, so we start off with your first page. Over here you have your selection of colors from different brands. So the color codes from the acrylic GSI series of Hobby Color. There's the lacquer Mr. colors, and then spray codes as well. And there's Humbrol, Vallejo, and also Life Color colors. And then we get into the construction. So it starts off with the hull. So over here we've got the sponson added armor, which is very specific. You've got the base armor that gets glued in place, and then obviously this rear section as well. And then the torsion bars for the suspension are put in place. Over here we have the swing arms for the suspension. They're going in, so there's nothing specifically different in that aspect. And then the road wheels. So the multi-piece road wheels with the tires on the end makes a big difference just by being able to do the color separation. Sprocket, gear cover, and then the idler are going in as well. Over here we start building the interior. So you've got the bulkheads for the front end. So this is the engine compartment, and then you've got the driver's compartment. You've got the driver's compartment control levers. Quite unique, quite long levers, because you had this optional seat which allowed to go up and down. So the driver himself could either be fully lowered in a protected position, or he could have his head protruded from the top while driving. A few decals going onto the bulkheads, and then the bulkhead and the floor is glued in over the torsion bars. Over here, I think these are shelves. So these are retractable shelves going in. A little bit more on the interior, you've got the fuel tank. Here's the adjustable seat for the driver. So quite a few components there, and that's mounted in the front. There's some more shelves, and then I think they're radios. So there's a radio going in, fire extinguisher, and there's a side view of the layout configuration. So are these, no, they'll be seats. These are fold up seats. So you can actually fit quite a few personnel in the back. Over here we have the front end going on. So you have the front plate, engine cover, and then the various bits and pieces. So you got tie downs, towing hooks, the lights are going in on the front end, and then the light covers. The top deck is going in, so a little bit of instrumentation, and then you've got the two sections going together for the driver's compartment, and then this is all mounted onto the top of the APC. Over here we have the driver's cupola and the hatch. That's all going together, and then the rear hatch. So the rear hatch was quite a bit different, and it has an additional thick section here. Not too sure what the reasoning is there, but it looks like for additional armour, I would think. This is the point where the photo etch components are going on for the additional mesh, which is found in the Australian version, and the turret ring. All right, once we've got that, we're getting into the pioneering tools. You got the axes, pretty standard type equipment, crowbars and such going on. You got tie downs, so for various equipment, and then the rear hatch. So rear hatch is quite a few multiple pieces for the door. So as you can imagine, this part needs to be very heavily armoured. It's a very thick component. So you can either use just a door for entering in and out, or the whole hatch can come down. And over here you got that section where there was that cable, that was the twine that was included. Okay, the hinges are getting mounted here. Rear lights, and then the whole hatch is attached to the back of the hull, and these particular components don't use glue, so you can actually continue using the hatch, open or close it. Over here we've got the hatch operation motor, and then this is showing the look of the door in the closed position. Over here we have the particular stowage for the extra jerry cans, and then also the specific mud flaps. The track goes on, so as you can see here, very simple assembly. Two ends go together, and then the pin just holds it all in place, no glue required at all. Over here we have the splash guard that goes on the front of the hull. So you could either have this built in the stowed position or the open position. So it's up to you, really. We have a spare wheel, so spare road wheel can go on the front here, spare set of tracks. And then this is the construction of the ammo boxes. So you have the 50 cal ammo boxes, which are the big chunky boxes, and then there's two sets of 30 cal. So depending on the configuration of the turret, which will be on the next step, is which particular items you use there. So this is if you had a 50 cal and 30 cal. So 50 cal is a long section, goes on this side, and a small section of 30 cal. Or if it's fully 30 cal, you have a long section of 30 cal ammo just going on one side. All right, so this is where we choose which particular configuration we want for the T50 turret. So 3 configurations here. So you can either have one 50 cal mounted, or there's one 30 cal mounted, or there's two 30 cals. I think later on they also had the option of a 50 cal and a 30 cal within the turret, but I think that was after the Vietnam War. I'm not too sure about that. I guess someone could fill me in with that. So this is where you have various additional bits. So you got blanking sections if there's a particular gun not being used. So it's up to you what sort of configuration you want. Obviously the twin machine gun configuration didn't have the external gun. They only had 2 machine guns used on each turret at a time. So if it's a single gun that you're using, you go over to this section here, which is mounting the 30 caliber machine gun onto the pintle mount. And that was placed on the top of the turret. So the whole idea here is, rather than relying on the speed of the turret spinning around looking for a target, which apparently was quite slow, the commander on the top could easily just pinpoint the target while the turret is moving, I guess, and then offer some shots before being pinned down. So on this section here, we have the vision blocks. So those are the clear sections on the round section of sprue. They're getting mounted in place on the base of the turret. And then you have these supports which hold the floor of the turret. And then the top section of the turret marries up with that. Over here we have the turret just fitting on top of the turret ring. And then here we can make some antennas with stretched sprue. That's a very old technique which was quite often shown in Timor instruction manuals from the past. Either that or you can use some really fine wire, it's up to you. Then we get into the weaponry here. So these are the particular American weapons that are included. So you got M14, you got M21 sniper, the XM177, which looks like an AR-15, a short version. And then you got the M16s. So these are the early versions with the very smooth guards there. Over here, there's also an M14 light machine gun and the SLRs, which were very specific to the Australian troops. So getting to this section here, which gives you the idea, the rundown of all your parts lists, so you can quite easily find where the particular component comes from. And then over here it continues on. These are the Australian weapons. So you've got the Sterlings. So there's the L2A1 and also the L34A1 version, the Australian F1 submachine gun, and then there's also the Owen gun here. So this particular Owen gun has the wooden stock and the front pistol grip. With this particular point here, let's see, I thought there were 3 versions. There's 4 configurations you can choose from. Is there any more? Oh, there we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 versions. Okay, 6 versions with all different markings. So these are all different configurations as well. So just depending on the configuration of your turret, there's specific markings. So I guess you just have to choose which one you like. So for example, you've got the twin 30 cal here. So that's a twin 30 cal there, that's a 50 cal and 30 cal. Twin 30 cal. So there's the markings. So obviously you need to check as well because the ammo configuration for each is going to be different. So whereas a 50 cal, 30 cal, depends on whether or not you need the 50 cal ammo to be on the top deck at all. Okay, so there we go. That's a run through of the instructions. So you may need to do a little bit more research, try to find some more, I guess, reference photos regarding the particular unit of that vehicle. But if you just wanted to build it out of the box, I mean, the instructions are quite comprehensive. All right, so that's the manual. And then what do we get here? So they always also supply you with a poster of the box art, which is quite nice. So you've got 2 different M113s here. Main one, obviously, the one with the T50 Cadillac Gage turret, and then you've got an Iroquois there as well. So very particular Vietnam type of landscape as well. So there you go. So this is the open box of the upcoming, because it's not quite available yet, of the AFV Club M113A1 Australian service with the Cadillac Gage T50 turret. This will be available shortly, so I think within the next couple of weeks, which will be I think mid to late July 2021. So look out for it. It's a very nice kit. As you can see with all the components, very clean. A lot of research has gone into it to make this particular version. Prior to this, you would have had to get conversion kits for the turret and then try to work out all the rest of the racking and armor modifications as well. But out of the box, very nice indeed. Look out for it. It's quite a build, and I think I will probably build this one as well. So look out for that in the future as well. So please, again, thank you for watching this review. If you have any questions, please put them on the bottom of this particular video and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So thank you for watching.